The notification came in at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was sitting in the cab of my Peterbilt 389, parked at a Flying J truck stop outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. I'd been on the road for 11 days straight, Bakersfield to Memphis, Memphis to Charlotte, Charlotte back through the mountains. My lower back was killing me. I had half a cold Subway sandwich on the passenger seat and a cup of gas station coffee that had gone cold 2 hours ago. I was tired in that specific way you only get after 11 days of nothing but asphalt and radio static. My phone buzzed. It was the bouncy GPS app. The one I'd installed on our 2019 Ford Explorer 3 weeks earlier. The alert said, "Vehicle has left designated home zone." I looked at the time again. 11:47 p.m. My wife Karen had texted me at 8:30 that night saying she was staying at her sister Debbie's place in Westerville because Debbie was going through some stuff and needed company. Said she'd already put the kids to bed at our neighbor Patty's house. Said not to worry. I opened the app. The little blue dot was moving east on Hamilton Road. I watched it for 60 seconds without breathing. It slowed down, made a turn, and stopped. I zoomed in on the map. The Marriott Courtyard. Exit 41. 4 miles from our front door. I sat there in that truck stop parking lot in Tennessee with the diesel engines rumbling all around me, and I felt something leave my body. Not anger. Not yet. Something quieter than that. Like a door closing somewhere deep inside a house. I took a screenshot. Then I called my buddy Dave, who was sleeping, and I said, "I need you to drive by the Marriott on Hamilton Road and tell me if you see Karen's car in the lot." He didn't ask questions. That's the kind of friend Dave is. 12 minutes later he called me back. Blue Explorer. Ohio plates. KRN 4471. Third row, facing the building. I already knew those plates by heart. I'd paid the registration on that car every year for 6 years. I said, "Okay." I hung up. I stared at the windshield for a long time. Then I called a divorce attorney at midnight and left a voicemail. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Gary. I'm 48 years old. I've been driving long-haul trucks for 22 years, started with a regional carrier out of Columbus, worked my way up to owning my own rig under a lease agreement with a freight company out of Dublin, Ohio. I run the I-70 and I-75 corridors mostly. Sometimes I go south toward Atlanta or west toward St. Louis. I'm home maybe 12 to 14 days a month, sometimes less in the busy season. Karen and I met in 2001 at a Buffalo Wild Wings where she was waitressing while finishing her associate's degree. She was 24, I was 26. We got married in 2004. We have 2 kids, Tyler, who's now 15, and Megan, who's 12. We live in a 4-bedroom colonial in Reynoldsburg, Ohio. Nothing fancy, nothing falling apart. We have a trampoline in the backyard. Karen drives the Explorer. I keep my personal truck, a 2014 F-150, parked in the garage when I'm on the road. For most of our marriage, things were fine. Not movie fine, not honeymoon fine, but the kind of fine that most people have when they've been together 20 years and the kids have activities and you're both tired all the time and you love each other in a low-grade steady way like a furnace running in the basement. You don't think about it. It just runs. Karen works part-time as an office manager at a dental practice in Gahanna. She's good at her job. The dentist she works for is a guy named Dr. Mitchell Crane, mid-40s, divorced, drives a black Audi A6. I'd met him once at the practice's holiday party in December 2022. He seemed fine. Normal guy. I shook his hand. He said Karen was a great employee. I nodded and went to get a beer. I didn't think anything of it. That's the part that gets me now. I looked right at the situation and didn't see it. Because I wasn't looking for it. I trusted my wife. I'd trusted her for 20 years. When you trust someone that completely, your brain automatically explains away the things that don't add up. It fills in the gaps with reasonable sounding excuses. It does this without you even asking it to. The signs were there. I just wasn't reading them right. The first thing I noticed was the perfume. I came home in late January after a 9-day run and Karen hugged me at the door the way she always did, and something was different. She smelled different. Not bad different, just not her usual thing, the warm vanilla sugar body spray from Bath & Body Works she'd been wearing since the early 2000s. This was something more expensive. Sharper. Like department store perfume. I said, "You smell good." "That new?" She said, "Oh, Debbie gave me some samples." "You like it?" I said, "Sure." I didn't think about it again for 2 weeks. Then in February I noticed the gym. Karen had joined a gym in November, the Planet Fitness on Broad Street, which I thought was great, good for her. But by February she was going 4, sometimes 5 times a week. Which is fine. Except she never seemed to lose any weight or talk about workouts the way people who actually go to the gym do. She didn't buy new sneakers. She didn't come home sweaty. Once she came home at 7:30 p.m. after supposedly being at the gym and her hair looked freshly blow-dried. I said, "Good workout?" She said, "Yeah, just did the elliptical." I nodded. I was tired from the road. I let it go. The phone thing started in March. Karen had always been casual with her phone, left it on the counter, left it in the car, never had a passcode until 2023. Then suddenly in March there was a 6-digit passcode on her iPhone 14, screened down on every surface, taken into the bathroom every time, tucked under her pillow at night. I noticed but told myself it was fine. Privacy was fine. People were entitled to privacy. Then one Sunday I was grilling in the backyard and she'd left her phone on the picnic table. It lit up with a text. I wasn't trying to snoop, I just happened to be standing right there. The preview showed, "Last night was incredible. You deserve so much," and then it cut off. The contact name said, Debbie. Now, Debbie is Karen's sister. I'd known Debbie for 20 years. Debbie has never once in 20 years sent Karen a text that started with "Last night was incredible." Debbie talks about her cats and her sciatica and whether certain brands of Greek yogurt are worth the extra money. I stood at the grill and I turned the burgers over very carefully and I thought, someone is using Debbie as a cover name. That was March 17th. I remember because it was St. Patrick's Day and Tyler was wearing a green hoodie and Megan was chasing the dog around the yard. Normal Sunday. Completely normal. And right there in the middle of it, my world cracked down the middle and I didn't say a single word. That night, after the kids were in bed, I went to my laptop and I ordered 3 things from Amazon. 1 bouncy GPS tracker, $67, magnetic mount, real-time tracking, cellular connection, alerts when the vehicle leaves a defined zone. 1 Sony ICD-UX570 digital voice recorder, $89, 4 gigabytes, runs 55 hours on a charge, about the size of a thick pen. 1 Blink outdoor security camera, $49, battery-powered, motion-activated, connects to my phone. Prime delivery. 2 days. I paid with a Visa gift card I bought at Kroger with cash. I was methodical about it. I wasn't panicking. I was a truck driver. I drove a 40-ton vehicle through mountain passes in January ice storms. I knew how to stay calm when something was going wrong and keep moving forward. I needed evidence. Not confrontation. Evidence first. The GPS tracker went under the rear chassis of the Explorer on a Tuesday night while Karen was giving Megan a bath. The bouncy unit is about the size of a deck of cards, strong neodymium magnet on the back. I slid under the car in the garage with a flashlight in my mouth and stuck it to the frame behind the rear passenger wheel well. Took 45 seconds. I activated it through the app on my phone, set a home zone geofence with a 0.25-mile radius, and put alerts on for any movement between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. The voice recorder went in Karen's car. I tucked it behind the center console, between the console and the passenger seat, in a position where it was invisible unless you pulled the seat all the way forward and looked with a flashlight. I set it to Vox mode, voice activated, starts recording when it detects sound, stops when there's silence. On a full charge, it would capture up to 30 hours of actual conversation. The blink camera went above the garage door on the outside, angled toward the driveway. Motion activated, saves clips to the cloud, sends me a notification every time it triggers. I told Karen I installed it because of a story I'd seen on Nextdoor about someone's catalytic converter getting stolen 2 streets over. She said good idea and didn't ask any more questions. I left for a run to St. Louis on March 22nd. The GPS stayed quiet for 3 days. Normal school pickup, grocery store, dentist office. I watched the little blue dot and it went to all the expected places, and I started to wonder if I was wrong about everything. I started to build a case in my head for why I was being paranoid. 20 years. 2 kids. Maybe Debbie just talks weird now. Then on March 25th, a Wednesday, the alert came in at 6:44 p.m. Vehicle has left home zone. I opened the app. The Explorer was heading north on Sunbury Road. I watched it turn east on Morse Road, then north again on Stigler Road. Then it stopped in a parking lot. I pulled up Google Maps satellite view and cross-referenced the coordinates. Bonefish Grill. Gahanna, Ohio. Okay. Dinner. Could be anything. Except Karen had told me she was eating leftovers at home that night. The car stayed at Bonefish Grill for 2 hours and 19 minutes. Then it moved again 2 miles north and stopped. Extended Stay America. Airport District. Room rates from $89 per night. It stayed there for 3 hours and 40 minutes. It came home at 12:28 a.m. I sat in my truck outside of a rest stop in Indiana and I did not sleep that night. When I pulled the voice recorder 2 weeks later, I told Karen I needed something from her car, grabbed it in about 4 seconds while she was inside. I sat in my F-150 in a Wendy's parking lot and put in earbuds and pressed play. The first hour was nothing. Radio. Karen singing along to a Taylor Swift song. Mundane. Then I heard a man's voice. He was in the car with her on March 25th. I recognized the voice after about 30 seconds. I had heard it once, at a holiday party, while shaking a hand and nodding and accepting a beer. Dr. Mitchell Crane. The conversation was casual at first. Restaurant, what to order, something about a patient who'd been difficult that day. Comfortable. Intimate. The kind of conversation you have when you've been talking to someone every day for a long time. Then at one point Karen said, Gary gets back Thursday. I have until then. And Mitchell Crane said, then let's not waste it. I stopped the recording. I sat in the Wendy's parking lot for 11 minutes. A family walked past my truck with a bag of food. A kid dropped a Frosty on the pavement and started crying. Normal world. Normal Tuesday. I pressed play again and documented everything. Times, statements, locations. I transferred the files to a folder on my laptop labeled Tax Documents 2023 and I sent a copy to a Dropbox account that only I knew about. I called my attorney. I had one now, a divorce lawyer named Patricia Holloway, who came highly recommended by my buddy Dave's brother, who'd been through something similar. I told her what I had. She said, "Keep going. Don't confront yet. We want a pattern, not an incident." So I kept going. Over the next 3 weeks, the GPS showed 7 separate visits to the extended stay America. 3 visits to an address on Agler Road that turned out to be Crane's personal residence, a rental house he'd moved into after his divorce. 2 more voice recordings that I won't describe in detail, but that left absolutely no ambiguity about what was happening and for how long. Patricia said, "Okay. Now we move." I planned it for the weekend of April 14th. The reason I picked that weekend was the GPS data. Based on the pattern, Karen visited the extended stay or Crane's rental every time I was on a long run and the kids had activities. Tyler had travel baseball on Saturday mornings, which meant he'd be gone from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., and Megan had a sleepover at her friend Cassidy's house that Friday night. I told Karen I was heading out on a run to Louisville on Thursday afternoon. I didn't go to Louisville. I drove my F-150 to a residence in 12 miles from our house, checked in under my name, paid cash for incidentals. I called Patricia. I called Dave. I had my phone fully charged, both voice recorders charged, the Bouncy app open, and the Blink app pulling up the driveway camera. Friday night, nothing. Karen stayed home. The Explorer didn't move. I watched the driveway camera from my hotel room and saw her let the dog out at 10 p.m. and go back inside. I ate delivery pizza and tried to sleep. Saturday morning, 8:17 a.m., Tyler's ride to baseball picked him up. I saw it on the camera. Karen waved from the doorway in her robe. 8:44 a.m., the Bouncy alert triggered. Vehicle leaving home zone. I was already in my truck. I followed the GPS in real time, staying about a mile back. The Explorer took the same route, Sunbury to Morse to Stigler. But this time it didn't stop at the extended stay. It went to Crane's rental on Agler Road. I parked on the street 2 houses down, behind a white Chevy Equinox that gave me good cover. I could see Karen's Explorer in the driveway next to Crane's black Audi A6. Both cars. Both people. I had hired a private investigator named Tom Ferris, Dave's recommendation again, who was already parked on the opposite end of the street in a gray Toyota Camry with a telephoto lens camera. We'd coordinated by text. He confirmed both vehicles. He started shooting. I sat in my truck. I checked the time, 9:03 a.m. I called Patricia. She said, "Is Tom there?" I said, "Tom's there." She said, "Wait until he's got clean shots of both of them together. Don't go to the door until Tom tells you he has what we need." At 9:41 a.m., Tom texted me, "I've got it. Go whenever you're ready." I sat with my hand on the door handle for about 30 seconds. Here is the thing about a moment like this: you spend weeks building toward it, and then when it arrives it's quieter than you expected. There's no music. There's no surge of adrenaline. It's just a Saturday morning in April in a residential neighborhood in Gahanna, Ohio, and the cherry trees are blooming, and somewhere down the street someone is mowing their lawn, and you are about to walk up to a front door and knock on it and watch 20 years of your life confirm exactly what you already know. I got out of the truck. I walked up the driveway. Tom was shooting from the car. I could feel the lens on my back. I knocked 3 times. Silence for about 15 seconds. Then footsteps. The door opened and Mitchell Crane was standing there in a gray Ohio State t-shirt and sweatpants, barefoot, coffee mug in his hand. His face went through about 4 different expressions in 2 seconds: surprise, recognition, confusion, and then something that was trying to become casual but wasn't making it. He said, "Gary." I said, Is my wife here? He said, I said, I don't need an answer. I know she's here. I'm not here for a fight. I'm here so that you both understand that I know. Karen appeared behind him in the hallway. She was wearing a blue cardigan I didn't recognize. She had no makeup on. She looked at me and the color left her face completely. She said, Gary, what are you? How did you? I said, GPS tracker on the Explorer. Voice recorder in your car. 7 visits to the extended stay. 3 visits here. I have all of it. My attorney has all of it. Tom, I pointed toward the Camry on the street, has photographs of both of you right now. Karen looked at the car. She looked back at me. She said, Gary, please, let me explain. I said, Karen, I don't want an explanation. I want you to know that there is nothing to hide anymore. I'll be filing papers on Monday. Tyler and Megan are going to need both of us to be adults about what comes next. Mitchell Crane had not moved or said anything. He was holding his coffee mug with both hands. I looked at him. I said, she's a married woman with 2 kids. I hope whatever this was worth it to you. I turned around and walked back to my truck. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Tom pulled away a minute after I did. He texted me at 10:15 a.m., everything documented. I'll have the full report and photos to Patricia by end of day. I drove to a Panera Bread. I ordered a coffee and a bagel. I sat by the window and watched families come in and out for about an hour. Then I called Tyler's cell phone. He was between innings. I said, hey, bud. Just wanted to hear your voice. How's the game going? He said, we're up 3. I had a double in the second. I said, that's my guy. I'll see you soon, okay? He said, okay, Dad. Love you. I said, love you too. I finished my coffee. I was okay. Patricia filed the divorce petition on Monday, April 17. Ohio is a no-fault state, but it also allows for fault-based grounds including adultery, and Patricia had enough documented evidence, GPS records, voice recordings, PI photographs, time-stamped hotel location data, that the fault filing was airtight. This matters in Ohio when it comes to property division and, more significantly, it mattered to what happened next. Here's the part one didn't expect. When Patricia sent the formal discovery requests to Karen's attorney, standard procedure, financial disclosures, account statements, what came back didn't add up. I knew our finances reasonably well. We had a joint checking account, a joint savings, my retirement account through the trucking company, and Karen's small IRA. Nothing complicated. But the forensic accountant Patricia brought in a woman named Sandra who had 20 years doing this work, and the energy of someone who genuinely enjoyed finding money that didn't want to be found came back to us 6 days later with something I hadn't anticipated. Karen had a separate account at a different bank. A Huntington checking account in her name only, opened in February 2022. 14 months old. Over those 14 months, $23,400 had been deposited in increments, $800 here, $1,200 there, never anything large enough to trigger questions. The deposits came from a Venmo account and a Cash App account that traced back, after some work, to a business entity called Crane Dental Management LLC. Mitchell Crane's dental practice had a management LLC. Mitchell Crane had been paying my wife through a business entity. Sandra put it plainly, this is either compensation for unreported work, which is a tax issue, or it's something else entirely, which is a different kind of issue. Patricia referred it to a financial crimes attorney named Robert Elias, who spent 2 weeks looking at Crane's business structure. What he found was that Crane Dental Management LLC had been used to move money through several channels in ways that the IRS would find interesting. Karen, as the office manager who handled billing and accounts, had been in a position to facilitate some of those movements. Whether she did so knowingly, willingly, or under pressure, that was a question for investigators. Robert filed a report with the IRS. In June, Karen received a letter from the IRS regarding a civil examination of her tax returns for 2021, 2022, and 2023. In July, Mitchell Crane's practice was the subject of a state dental board complaint filed by a former employee unrelated to our case, which opened a broader investigation into his billing practices. I want to be clear, I did not pursue any of this to destroy anyone. I pursued a divorce. The other things came out as a consequence of the financial disclosure process that is standard in any divorce. Sandra found what Sandra found because she was doing her job. But I will not pretend I wasn't sitting at my kitchen table on a Tuesday evening, eating leftover rotisserie chicken, when Robert called to tell me about the IRS referral, and feeling a very specific and uncomplicated sense of, this is what happens. Karen moved out in May. She went to stay with her sister Debbie, the real Debbie, who apparently had no idea her name had been used as a cover story for a year and a half, and who was, by all accounts, furious about it. I heard through mutual friends that Debbie and Karen had a significant argument. Debbie has 2 kids of her own and a husband who works in insurance, and she takes her reputation in the community seriously. The dental practice terminated Karen's employment on April 28, 11 days after the divorce petition was filed. I don't know the exact circumstances, I didn't ask. I know it happened because Tyler mentioned that Mom got a new job at a hair salon when I was dropping him off one Sunday, with the casual matter-of-fact delivery that teenagers use to convey things they know are significant but don't want to discuss. The social fallout was quieter but real. Karen and I had been in the same social circle for most of our marriage, neighborhood couples, Tyler's baseball parents, Megan's school community. Within about 6 weeks of the filing, Karen had essentially separated from that circle. I don't believe anyone organized it or made a decision about it. I think it was the natural result of people learning what had happened and being unsure what to do with the information, and Karen being uncomfortable in spaces where people knew. Megan was 12 and very perceptive. She didn't ask me directly what had happened, but one evening in May she came into the kitchen where I was making pasta and stood next to me and said, "Dad, is everything going to be okay?" I put down the spoon and turned to her and said, "Yeah. It's going to be different, but different isn't always bad. You and Tyler are always going to have both of us, no matter what." She leaned against me for a second, then went back to her room. 12-year-olds don't need speeches. They need the person they're leaning on to be solid. I made sure I was solid. The divorce was finalized in September. Patricia was extraordinary. Because of the fault filing and the financial disclosures, the settlement came out significantly in my favor. I kept the house. I got primary residential custody of Tyler and Megan. Karen has them every other weekend and every Wednesday evening, which she exercises consistently and which I don't interfere with. The kids need their mother. That is a separate thing from what their mother did. The Explorer was sold. We split the proceeds. Karen got her IRA, I kept my retirement account intact. She got no claim on my truck or my freight business. The IRS matter was still ongoing as of when I last checked in with Robert. These things move slowly. Crane's billing investigation was in process. I don't track it. That's not my business anymore. I had the kitchen repainted in October. A color called accessible beige, which sounds ridiculous but looks good in the afternoon light. Tyler helped me tape the trim. We listened to a Bengals game on the radio while we rolled the walls, and he told me about a girl at school he sort of liked, and I gave him the least embarrassing advice I could manage. Megan joined a volleyball league in the fall. She's good long arms, good instincts at the net. I go to every game. I sit in the bleachers with a gas station coffee and I cheer louder than any other parent there, and she pretends to be embarrassed, but she's not. I'm still driving. I-70, I-75, sometimes south to Atlanta. The road is the same as it always was, long and flat and loud and requiring exactly enough of your attention that you can't think too hard about anything else, which is sometimes exactly what you need. I don't hate Karen. That surprised me too, honestly. I thought I would, for a while. But what I feel is closer to nothing, not a cold nothing, but a settled nothing. Like a room after you've moved the furniture out. Empty, but yours again. I have the bouncy app still on my phone. Force of habit, I guess. Sometimes I check it before I fall asleep. My truck is always exactly where I left it. That's enough.